Well, greetings, everyone. I'm Joe Sanchez, the founder and executive director of the Cyber Texas Foundation here in San Antonio, Texas. And we're thrilled to be here with you today. I won't say this morning because it may be afternoon in some places. So welcome to all of you. It's a real pleasure to be with you in this Cyber Talent Week. We've brought together a panel that we hope will be able to share with you and depict the Cyber Patriot journey as the title of this particular panel. We're very thrilled to have some distinguished guests who will present from their particular area. The panel, I'll just introduce myself, then we'll have some intros, and then we're going to go into each one of them for about 5 to 7. And if there'll be questions in the end, we'll be happy to be able to do that for you. But first off, I'd like to turn it over to Rachel. If you could please introduce yourself, Rachel.
Sure. I'm Rachel Zimmerman. I'm the Senior Director of Business Operations for CyberPatriot, and I've been with the program for 12 years now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for joining us. Monique.
Hello, everyone. My name is Monique LaPlante, and I'm the current program manager with the Cyber Texas Foundation. I'm also an adjunct professor at the College of Biomedical Equipment and Technology.
Thank you, Monique. And Frank?
Good morning. I'm Frank Hall. I'm a Cyber Patriot coach and a mentor here in San Antonio, and I work for the United States Air Force.
Terrific. Yeah, Frank and I worked together in the same building for years. I'm a retired Air Force civilian, so we had many great times and many chats about Cyber Patriot and how we can improve while at work. So it was terrific. We do have one more panel member who will be joining us, Josh Beck. He is in class right now and should be joining us in the next five minutes or so. So we'll be able to make sure that he jumps in. But as was noted, this is the Cyber Patriot journey. And I think the great thing that I learned about almost, I guess I'd say about 12 to 14 years ago was that Cyber Patriot exists. And it was a great program that we could use within the foundation to be able to help students learn about IT first and foremost, and then learn about cybersecurity. And it's a great program that I hope all the guests here, the visitors, are able, either they know about it, they will learn something, and they will pass the word on to your children, to your grandchildren, to your nieces and nephews, to your friends and their kids, because it's a great program to be able to learn about IT. A field that's ever growing, and specifically about cybersecurity. Sorry about that. What I want to do first is let you know that Cyber Texas is a nonprofit. We've been around for about 7 years. Our main focus is developing the next generation of cyber workforce. We've been doing that since 1999. Officially, we formed as a nonprofit in 2015, but we work with folks like Rachel and Monique and Frank here locally in San Antonio, which has I'd like to think, one of the better programs in the country. We've been successful in the numbers as well as the finalists over the years. We've had some very good programs in each of the different districts here in San Antonio. And our job at Cyber Texas is to make sure that they have some of the resources that they need. And we're going to cover some of that here today. So first, what I'd like to do is to turn it over to Rachel Zimmerman, who works for Cyber Patriots. She can give us a perspective of what Cyber Patriot is all about.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. So to start, Cyber Patriot was started in 2009 in response to the 2008 Congressional Research Service study that said we're behind in STEM. And the newly renamed Air and Space Force Association, it used to be Air Force Association, got together, our board of directors got together and said, what can we do to help fix that? And somebody said, hey, what about a cyber program? And so that's how Cyber Patriot formed. And in 2010, we had our first pilot program where we had 8 teams gather in Orlando, Florida, and that's grown to now 6 different programs that we run. And at our peak before the pandemic, we had over 6,000 teams register for our competition. So Cyber Patriot is all about building that next digital workforce and cyber defenders for tomorrow. But our overarching goal is to draw students to STEM. And we have 6 programs that we run that help us do that. 2 are at the elementary school level. We also have 2 programs that are focused on educating senior citizens and keeping them safe online. And then we have 2 programs that are focused on the middle school and high school level. One of them is our AFA Cyber Camp program, which is curriculum that we sell to organizations who want to have camps in their local area. And then our main program is our cyber defense competition that we run annually with the school year. And it puts students in the role of a system administrator at a small business. And during our online competition rounds, we send them network images that have all these vulnerabilities configured within it. And the student's job is to find and fix as many of those vulnerabilities as they can in a 6-hour period of time. And they're given various operating systems, Windows Server, we have Linux and Ubuntu, we have Cisco networking. That's also a component for our competition. And the teams of students have to find and fix as many of those vulnerabilities as they can. And so CyberPatriot, like I said, before the pandemic, we had about 6,700 teams that register. With the pandemic, we did see a dip in registration, 2021 or the 2020-2021 school year. We were just figuring out how we're going to do school and how that's going to look. And some of them were virtual only. And so extracurricular programs like CyberPatriot weren't necessarily a focus. But we had 5,400 teams that registered this past year, and we've already opened registration for our 15th season for next school year. And that's going well. So during the teams that register, it all starts with a coach. The coach is really the first part of the team, and any youth organization can host a CyberPatriot team. And an organization can have as many CyberPatriot teams as they would like. And so the teams that register, it all starts with the coach, and they can have up to 5 teams individually. And from there, that coach can register 2 to 6 students per team. And then if that coach, they don't have to be technically savvy, they just have to be that administrative lead for the team. So if they're not knowledgeable enough to teach the students what they need to know, then we bring in our network of mentors who help teach the students what they need for the competition. And I'm sure we have some great guests here today who can explain all of those perspectives from the competitor side, the coach side, and the mentor side. But during the online rounds of competition, the teams have to work together in order to get as many of the vulnerabilities as they can for the competition. And so we have 4 rounds of competition that the students participate in. And then the top 28 teams make it to our national finals competition, which we hold here in the DC area. And Josh Beck, who's on the panel, his team was at national finals this year. And so he can give a great perspective on that as well. And we have great support from, teams across the country, including the Cyber Texas Foundation and all that they do in San Antonio to provide more, great support for the teams locally there. So I think that's a pretty good overview of CyberPatriot. And then I'll turn it back to you, Joe.
Rachel, thank you very much. Excellent job on sharing the overview of what CyberPatriot is. I'm sure you could take the whole 45 minutes or an hour to talk about it. And I know we certainly know that you have the passion for it. So we thank you for everything you've done over the years for CyberPatriot and continue to do. You have a fantastic staff, I just want to say. So if people are interested, you'll be well taken care of with the CyberPatriot staff. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, since we talked about this being the engaging youth in cybersecurity, the CyberPatriot journey, I thought I'd bring in someone who happens to work for Cyber Texas Foundation. And what I want to do is I want to have her go ahead and tell her story on how she came about learning about CyberPatriot. And Monique, perhaps if you could talk about, how that was in your early days at the high school, and then how that influenced you, and then just influenced your high school career, your college career, and certainly in your working now for Cyber Texas Foundation, helping CyberPatriot. So if I could turn it over to you, Monique, love to be able to have you share us your journey in CyberPatriot.
Thank you, Joe. Yes, so my journey started way back my freshman year of high school. So that was a long time ago now. But originally, I had no idea what I wanted to do in the future. It was very difficult to get hands-on in the different areas that you were interested in. But when I was first starting out in the Army JROTC program at Churchill High School, the program had just started my freshman year, and my instructor had actually told us, hey, for those who are interested, go ahead and attend the intro meeting. You might find it to be very interesting. And then go ahead and get participated within CyberPatriot, the new program. So he had actually recommended to me personally, hey, since you like video games and you're interested in computers a little bit, why don't you go ahead and just attend that intro meeting, see if you like it. If not, then at least you attended the meeting. So I went ahead, I actually went ahead and went to the introduction meeting. I had watched the introduction video into CyberPatriot at that time. I thought it was so cool. All these kids doing awesome computer stuff, learning all different sorts of things. And just the overall experience of even getting to see the kids go to nationals too and do the whole live competition there. It was just an amazing thing that I had never seen before, especially not at the high school level, let alone the middle school level. So at that point, I just decided I'm going to go ahead and stick with it, see what these meetings are all about and the competition. And from then on, the story goes, I fell in love with it. I attended all the different competitions. And in my senior year of high school, I became one of the co-captains of our team. And I specialized in the Windows operating system. I ended up finding out that that was one of my favorite things to do. And then I went ahead and moved on, went to college. Now that I had actually found something that I love to study, I decided cybersecurity. UTSA was the best school for that in San Antonio. I mean, we were in Cyber City, USA, so awesome school here. So went ahead, I enrolled in the program. And then actually Vic from the Cyber Texas Foundation had reached out to me in my senior year of college and had asked me for an interview with the Cyber Texas Foundation. So I went ahead, I did the interview. I loved the program, what it was all about, and seeing how everything came full circle. Because now I'm the other end of helping with the Cyber Patriot program. And that was a moment that I never had seen coming in a million years, you know, to be just from a freshman student, seeing everybody talk about this wonderful program and seeing the people in charge, to now being on the other side of things, helping to organize things like our cyber camp and our Mayor Cyber Cup. So it's been an awesome journey. And also too, now I teach networking courses at the Beck college that I work at. So I just fell in love with learning and teaching and seeing students grow. And it's just awesome to be on the other side of things and helping that and influencing the next cyber generations.
Thanks, Monique. Can you also share, so you received your bachelor's in cybersecurity. Can you share what you're doing now and what you hope to do in the future?
Yeah, so currently I'm actually in the master's program. This is my last year in the master's program. I'll graduate in December with an information security degree in the Master of Science. And then I'll go ahead and continue on to pursue my doctorates too, because I want to be a professor in the end. So that's my ultimate dream.
And you want to teach cybersecurity as a PhD.
Yes.
Yeah. So I can't think of a better journey, Rachel, or all our guests here today, of someone who started as a freshman in high school, is receiving her master's in a matter of months, excuse me, and then will be, excuse me, pursuing her PhD and teach. And this is something she told me very early on, is that her goal is to teach. So Monique, thank you for everything you've done. You've shared a great experience in a very short, brief amount of time. I think people get the gist of what Cyber Patriot can do for you as early as a 14-year-old in high school, and move on to college, and then looking to help others in the community and beyond. Because our last camp, I think Monique ran our last camp, and we had people on the Northwest Coast participating in our camp. So that was great to see that she could expose beyond San Antonio. So the key word there was teach. And I think this is a good segue into having Josh Beck step up. Josh was teaching. I just came from Josh's Institute of Cybersecurity and Innovation, and I made it home in time. And now Josh is sitting there in his classroom, a fantastic security operations center. I won't go into too much of it. But what I'd like to do, Josh, is since you weren't there at the beginning, introduction, so you do a quick introduction of yourself, and then talk about how it is, how you started in terms of coaching at Roosevelt, and how that challenges and what the things that you need to do to make sure your students have what they need in order to learn, which I always think is all about knowledge, and then of course the competition. So over to you, Josh.
All right. So my name is Josh Beck. I'm the Institute of Cybersecurity and Innovation here at Northeast ISD. Joe, I don't see the coffee cup in the background. You know,
I left it, Josh.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. And so, right, I don't have a background in cyber. I have an English degree. I graduated 20 years ago with a liberal arts degree, you know. And it's one of those things where technology has always been a passion. It's always been something I like to learn about. When I was teaching English and sitting in the teacher's lounge reading programming books, people would look at me like, what are you doing, you know? And so you don't have to have a formal education or work experience in cyber to get involved in Cyber Patriot, to coach a team and to start learning about this, because there are just so many resources available. And it's a long process, and there's a lot of trial and error involved. So I started at Roosevelt High School, it was like 10 years ago now. And back then, you know, when you said cybersecurity in the classroom, people were like, well, what's that? Including me, right? And so I started small. And I think one of the recommendations I would make to new coaches out there is start small. Pick a group of enthusiastic students, 4 or 5, and go after it and try to, you know, learn the concepts together. Being a Cyber Patriot coach the first year, I've done my best to try to mentor a series of new coaches here in San Antonio this year for the first year. And I can say that even with as much mentoring support and everything I was trying to provide from an off-site location, it's an overwhelming experience for a new coach. And I would say anticipate that, you know, just know that it's a very difficult, it's a learning curve. I think that after the first year, it's a whole lot easier. You know, being in public education, I could say the same thing about teaching, right? Your first year in the classroom almost kills you, you know, but then the second year, it's easier, and the third year, it's easier after that. So you kind of have to anticipate that as a coach, right? You're hit with a whole bunch of new technologies. You're hit with a bunch of new concepts. Cyber Patriot has procedures, and it seems kind of hectic to try to figure all that out the first time. But I think the Cyber Patriot Program Office anticipates that new coaches are going to make mistakes. And anytime I've tried to reach out to the Cyber Patriot Program Office with help or requests, even on behalf of a new coach, they've always been very understanding, and they've always worked with us to try to resolve the issue and make sure that we all have what we need. So it's a supportive community. I would say reach out to industry, you know, try to find mentors. There are lots of people. I get lots of requests from individuals out there in San Antonio with a general open-ended question. Hey, how can I help? And those people are out there, and it's a difficult process sort of connecting with those people, but Cyber Patriot does have mentors that sign up through the website that can be connected with your high school as well, that can come in and help with some of that technical instruction. So I would say take it slow, work through the Cyber Patriot modules that the students go through. So in terms of Cyber Patriot, they provide online learning materials through a platform called Netacad. And the students are really should work through that. You know, it's an online course. It's what it is. And as a coach, I think it's beneficial to sit down and try to learn that stuff yourself over the first year and try to pick up as much of it as you can. In order to get to the point where you really feel comfortable with Cyber Patriot, it takes 3 or 4 years, but it's just a slow, steady process. So I guess that would be my advice.
Terrific. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. I know you have a lot more to say, and we'll get to that maybe in Q&A here.
Oh, I'm happy to chime in. You bet.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, next up, we have Frederick, go by Frank Hall. I've met Frank years ago over at Security Hill here in San Antonio at Lackland Air Force Base at what was once 25th Air Force. And Frank, I'd like for you to start with, you know, what was it that started you into wanting to be able to mentor first and then coach a number of teams? So I'd love for you to talk about that, and then talk about the scope that you do here locally within the San Antonio area and beyond into the rural areas of our community. Over to you, Frank.
Thanks, Joe. So initially, I got involved with Cyber Patriot because my oldest child at the time joined ROTC and joined the Cyber Patriot team. So I spoke with the coach that was there. I said, hey, anything I can do to help, please let me know. It started off with, sure, we need some extra computers. So I started gutting computers, rebuilding them, heading them over to the team. Eventually that coach left, a new one took over. And it had been a couple years since I spoken with the coach at the ROTC program where my son was at. And I reached out and said, hey, do you need any help? Because I heard the program is growing. He said, yes, please come help me. Right. So I went out there, I did the registration and got on board with Cyber Patriot, became a technical mentor, and started out there at Medina Valley and started being the technical coach for the Windows and Linux and the Cisco. Started diving in with the kids, helping them learn the different processes, how things have to flow and operate within the operating system, how to hunt threats that are inside the operating system, stuff like that. Eventually, the coach didn't want to be the coach no more, and they said, "You take over." So, thus, I became the coach of the Medina Valley CyberPatriot team for the ROTC division, and just took it over. Started taking the kids different directions. Started trying to expose them more to the actual cyber world where I'm involved in, bringing it to them. And eventually, word spread from Castroville to Hondo that, hey, they have a Cyber Patriot team out here. Why don't you come talk to us at the public library? Because we want to get something started there. So I went out and spoke with the head librarian there, and I spoke with the programs manager, kind of explained what Cyber Patriot does, how it could benefit not only Hondo, but the surrounding rural counties for the smaller schools that don't have this program or offer anything like this, but the kids want to learn it. And word got out, and the program took off there in Hondo. We've been out there for 4 years. So it's growing. It's that time of year where I have to start recruiting again because I have 3 seniors that are leaving. So I got to try to recruit more kids in from around the different counties to try to bring them into the school or to the library team. But it has been very successful, both at Medina Valley and Hondo. And around San Antonio, I've mentored one team in San Antonio. And I've tried to help coaches as much as I can around the area. And other coaches have reached out from across the country to ask for help and advice through certain Cyber Patriot channels, so I can help guide them. Because a lot of first-year coaches, a lot of second-year coaches, a lot of more experienced coaches, maybe they want to get some more insight from somebody they hadn't learned before, met before into the program. You know, how they can help make their teams better, how to run practices better, stuff like that.
Frank, could you elaborate a little bit on being a mentor and the process of applying for and getting assigned, whether through the website or here locally in San Antonio?
So all mentors have to go through a background check and register with Cyber Patriot. They got to go through fill out the paperwork, fill out the form on their website. They can list out what their credentials are. They can list out where they work, so they can kind of get some background. So when they try to pair the mentors up with the teams, they can find the best fit for the technical mentor. So that school can have the best technical expertise to help teach these kids what they need to do in order to compete. Now, granted, here in San Antonio, I'm pretty sure around the country as well, they also have to fill out the background check for the school. So there's 2 background checks. So whenever you're a mentor and you want to do this, make sure you check with the school district that's there, see what their background requirements are, and then definitely be sure to check out the Cyber Patriot website and register with them.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Frank. Going back a little bit, just so people get a sense of geography, San Antonio is about a 2 million population. We have surrounding counties. Medina Valley is at the outskirts of San Antonio, roughly about, I'd say maybe 20 miles, 15, 20 miles from San Antonio. And Hondo is another 20 to 25 miles out with a population of, what would you say, about 10,000 maybe?
Yeah, just under 10,000.
Yeah. So I think the idea of a public library is a fantastic place to be able to bring students together and to have the librarian and their leaders there willing to be able to do that. I think is a fantastic story. Could you also mentioned to me a while back that you've been contacted by librarians. Could you elaborate on how this may expand within the state?
So the head librarian of Hondo attends a Texas Library Association meeting with all the library directors in surrounding counties and throughout Texas. And so she was talking with some of the other directors and said, hey, you know, we have this Cyber Patriot program at our library, and we're offering kids to come in to learn this stuff. And according to what she said, ears perked up, heads turned, and everybody was paying attention to her. And they were asking her questions. Well, how can we start this at our, in our area? Because it's rural Texas or very small schools. Some of the schools don't have the resources and stuff, but the libraries can get these resources there through grants, funding they have from the city, stuff like that. So we had one from Bandera. We had another one up in Bandera County. We had all these small libraries start contacting the head librarian of Hondo to establish or start forming the idea of establishing Cyber Patriot teams through the library.
Fantastic.
And Joe,
Go ahead. I'm just going to turn it over to you, please.
I was going to say, if I could just jump on what he just said. One great thing about CyberPatriot is that it's not one size fits all. It's most often utilized as an after-school program at local schools, but it's open to any youth organization that wants to have a CyberPatriot team. So we have scouting units. We have an all-service division as part of our competition, and that's open to Civil Air Patrol teams, as well as U.S. Naval Sea Cadet Corps teams. So it's not just high schools and middle schools, public schools that are available. It's also the local libraries and any youth organization out there that can register for CyberPatrioting, and they can utilize that. I'll also say how teams are structured and how often they meet varies greatly across the board. We have some teams that are new to CyberPatriot and maybe they're trying to get up to speed, and so they meet every week for a few hours. We have other CyberPatriot teams that only meet in person maybe once a month, and they meet virtually other times. How often the coach has to put time into it, maybe that depends on how much knowledge your students have on cybersecurity before they come into CyberPatriot. We have a lot of teams who maybe don't have a mentor support, and they assign their students a topic, and they say, okay, well, your job for the next month is to learn everything you can about Cisco networking, because next month you're going to teach your fellow CyberPatriot competitors all about that. Or your job is to learn everything about Windows operating systems and teach that next month. So there's a variety of ways that CyberPatriot can be implemented. That's also true with the mentor relationship. There are some mentors who are extremely dedicated and want to be at every single practice and provide, materials for students to learn between the practices and to be at every single competition. But there's other mentors who say, I can give you one lesson a month, 1 hour a month is what I can give. And there are teams that jump on top of that. So you don't have to have hours and hours of time put into it. You can give as much or as little time as you want to CyberPatriot, and there's going to be teams out there who are going to be extremely appreciative of that. We also have some resources on our website that are available for new coaches. So if you're interested in CyberPatriot and you want to check it out, we have a demo that you can download that actually walks you through what an image looks like and what the students do. I once had a coach call me and ask me, hey, where's that picture that my students need for the competition, because he didn't understand the term image that we use, and that it's a virtual operating system and it functions just like a computer. He thought they were finding flaws in a picture out there. So this helps explain that to maybe a principal or a potential mentor, a potential coach, what it is that the students are actually doing. And we also have a new coach workshop that we put together that tries to summarize all that you need to know for the CyberPatriot competition. But as Josh said, there's a lot of intricacies to CyberPatriot. There's a learning curve as part of that, but the best thing you can do is just start. And we have 3 tiers in our competition at the high school level. And so the first year, after the first 2 rounds of competition, how your teams do based on their score, that determines what tier you're placed into. And so the silver tiers kind of has easier images in the state round, and then there's the gold tier that has slightly harder images, and then there's the platinum tier that has the hardest images. So then from there, we're sort of catering to the student's skill level so that new students aren't getting overwhelmed and frustrated to say, hey, I can't do this. Well, you can, you just need the practice. And so you have those different tiers that the students are competing on in the state round so that they can, achieve something. And so maybe just as a first year team, making it into the, silver tier and being one of the top teams in your state, that's an accomplishment that you need to celebrate. And from there, maybe your goal is to say, we want to make it into the gold tier this year, and to go from there. So there's different levels in CyberPatriot, and no one expects you as a first year team to make it to the national finals competition. That's like qualifying for the Final Four as a brand new NCAA team. So there's different levels for you to strive through. But at the end of the day, it's all about the students and getting them excited about cybersecurity so that they can have a pathway like Monique had to say, hey, I can do this, and this is really cool, and this is something I want to work on.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. That helps tremendously. I think that the idea that you all have adapted, because I know at one point everybody was in the same batch and everybody was competing, and it was frustrating. We had a lot of feedback that they would give up after a round or two, knowing that they could never get anywhere. So I love what y'all have been able to do to make sure that everybody has a chance to compete within their own expectations. I think it's great if they can just win that one round or the state round. So that's really great. Josh, what I'd like to do is to take a few minutes with you is to talk about, Rachel touched on team composition. That's something we haven't really talked about. Can you explain, how you form a team and who's involved, what their assignments are, and how you manage multiple teams?
I can. Just sort of jumping off what you said, I'm building a presentation. I'm bringing in a group of elementary students in 2 weeks up here on a Saturday, and I'm going to talk to them a little bit about CyberPatriot because I'll have that opportunity in middle school. And one of my slides is CyberPatriot is fun, And so, what you said about learning and just being engaged and enjoying the process, I think is an important one there. Right, team composition. So with CyberPatriot competition, you're going to form a team of 5 students, and you can have one alternate. And I try not to have an alternate most of the time, just because that's one person that will sit out on a given competition, right? So if I can avoid having an alternate and have all 5 of the team members engaged in every competition, like personally, I would prefer to do that. But there's nothing wrong with having an alternate, right? Because that alternate might compete in round 1 and then not in round 2. And even at the national finals level, they have a plan for that where the alternate gets to drop in during certain competitive events. So you can have a team of up to, I should say, 5. Or the 6 is the alternate. You can have teams as small as 1. Some years ago, you as a new coach, you will put together a team, and you'll get maybe 4 people that say, "Hey, let's do this," and then 3 of them will disappear on you in October, and you'll have 1 student left. And I remember some of those students that would show up to every competition, and I'd be like, "Okay, here are your 3 images." And those kids would just truck it out, right? So you can have 1 student competing. And that's not preferable, and it's going to be a little overwhelming for that 1 student. But I think ideally you want, at the very least, 4 students. I think having a team of 5 is best. And the reason for that is, CyberPatriot is going to give you a couple of Windows operating systems. You're going to get like a Windows Server operating system. You're going to get a Windows operating system. You're going to get maybe a couple of different Linux operating systems. You're going to have a Cisco challenge. And so what I do is I have the students start in certain locations. Everybody knows where they're going to start. Student A says, "I'm going to start on Windows Server, and here is my game plan for the first half an hour." Student B is going to start on Ubuntu, and here's my game plan for the first half an hour, right? Some people like to specialize, and you do want your specialists. You do want students that are studying more in the realm of Linux security and students that are studying more in the realm of Windows security. But I've noticed my strongest competitors over the years, my best competitors, it doesn't matter what operating system they're sitting in front of. They are equally versatile with Linux, Windows, and Cisco, right? And that's kind of a long-term goal with a student. That's a student who's sort of been in a pathway that has been doing it for 4 or 5 years. Over the course of those 4 or 5 years, they've taken the time to sort of investigate each one of the operating systems, so that after an hour or 2, people can kind of move around and everybody sort of feels comfortable with what they have in front of them. So yeah, we put together a team of 5. Everybody certainly has an area where they feel most comfortable, but I think everybody needs to have knowledge of all the domains.
That's fantastic.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And you do assign a captain who's going to be there to try and bring the team together, correct?
Sure, and that's something where it's more of, I try not to assign too much to the captain is the team lead, because everybody really wants to have that role. So I try to make that more of an administrative point of contact, especially when you're managing multiple teams. I'll kind of make the point early on that, okay, I'm going to assign a team captain. I'm going to let your team come to me first and let me know if you want someone. If you can't decide, I'll pick. But that person will just sort of be responsible for communicating with me. And when I communicate with the team captain, then that team captain will be responsible for communicating with the other team members. So that team captain position is more as a communication point of contact for me.
Good to hear. Great. Monique, here you are, half a year away from finishing your master's. I'm curious to know what you would tell your 14 or 16 or 18-year-old self, if you could, now that you've achieved so much in your short life.
I would say the biggest thing is that it's not as scary as it seems, because first off the bat, with so much information and everything, a lot of times you feel like, I don't know any of this stuff. Oh no, what's going to happen? And just I've come to learn that a lot of students come into it with a lot of knowledge, but there's also a lot of students that this is their first time doing anything like it. So just enjoy the ride. Go ahead and take it as it comes. Take those pieces of information. Don't worry too much about knowing everything all at once, because it's definitely a journey. And you always end up choosing one of the pathways, whether it be you're more coding focused, you like Linux more, Windows, networking. There's all different sorts of avenues to go ahead and explore.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I would also ask you, we mentioned camps. These are teams, and as I tell students or parents, it's much like being on a volleyball team, girls volleyball or boys lacrosse team, right? You have to practice. It's generally going to be a year round. And Cyber Patriot, as Rachel mentioned, they do have summer camps, which we've been participating in for many years. Monique, you operate the camps for us under Cyber Texas. Can you describe what the camps are and how those go about it? I know you've been at it since it's been virtual, but can you briefly describe about the standard camp and the advanced camp?
Yes, so I'll go ahead and explain them. So when it comes to the standard camp, that's like our introductory camp. So a lot of times these teens have not participated before. They're within the early stages of their Cyber Patriot team. A lot of times we'll be going through the basics. So what is Cyber Patriot? How does it work? The whole introduction to that. And of course, with anything, we also have to introduce the cyber ethics portion. So what is right to do? What is wrong to do? What is okay? What the competition is and what it's not. So we have to explain that it's a ethical security competition, not a hacking competition in essence. And then also to give an introduction to the different operating systems. So we use the Windows one, the Linux one, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up with the competition at the end. So we just go ahead and give them a nice introduction. A lot of information is included within those slides. I would say it goes from beginning to kind of like intermediate. So they do learn a lot within the span of a week. So it's definitely like a boot camp sort of thing, because they do learn a lot. And then they finish with the final competition, which is shorter than the regular competition, but it is just like a regular competition, except for instead of, I believe, 6 hours, it's shrunken down into 3 hours. And they work together in their teams to go ahead and solve different problems that are within their images, both the Linux and Windows systems. And they work together to say, okay, let's go ahead and find the security issues. And as they go, they get points for it, just like in the real competition, except for the problems that they're going to go ahead and stumble upon are a little bit easier in nature. So things like making sure that they have secure passwords, that the guest account is turned off, and things like that. Now for our advanced camp, it's similar, but it's a little bit different. So at this point, these are students that are seasoned in Cyber Patriot. So a lot of times they have done the competition before. They've been in it for a couple of years, or they've been in it for a while. And then we go ahead and still cover both Windows and Linux distribution, Ubuntu, but we go a little bit more in depth into it. So it's more heavier within the command line and the PAM configurations for Linux. And then for Windows, it's more into the sysinternals. So it's definitely more command line based and rather the friendly graphical user interface. And then we also include the networking portion too. So I know that Josh had mentioned the Cisco networking. So we open up the Net Acad for them to go ahead and learn some basics for networking. They can go ahead and create like a network diagram and go ahead and get an introduction to how all of that works. And then after that, then we go ahead, do the review, and then we have a final competition once again, except for there is a networking portion in addition to the 2 regular operating systems. And the questions tend to be a little bit more difficult in nature at that point because they already have the basics. So it's going to be a little bit harder for them to go ahead and find those points. It's challenging, but it's definitely worth it. Because then, once they start getting the points, they get excited and it's like, yes, my knowledge from the camp, it's coming into use here. So it's just a little bit more definitely higher difficulty than the standard camp is, but they do learn a lot more. And some students do start off by going to the standard camp and then they'll jump into the advanced camp whenever it's later on in the summer. So that way they can go ahead and just build on their knowledge and then bring it back to their team for the fall to go ahead and share with them.
Great. Thank you, Monique. Rachel, I hope she did a good job of sharing what the cyber camps are all about.
She did a fantastic job of explaining all of that. The only thing I'll add is that we have demo images. So as they're going through the curriculum and they're learning about Windows operating systems and Linux operating systems, they have the demo images. So they're getting hands-on time with those labs. So when they learn about command line, the students get hands-on time where they can implement that. And then the competitions are really the culminating event for that. So she did a great job explaining.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel and Monique. Hey, Josh, can you turn your camera? Is your camera movable? Can you kind of showcase your Institute for Cybersecurity? You're on mute. You're on mute, Josh.
You're asking me to show the room. Is that what you're asking? I hope.
Try not to. Yeah,
I'm not doing the right thing here. But you can kind of see what the Security Operations Center looks like behind me here. Yep.
Yeah. Fantastic. There you go. Shows the 30 seats for classroom.
Yeah. If I can. There we go. So that's it. That's our classroom space. It's fantastic. I feel like I won the lottery. Let me tell you.
Yes, indeed. It's a fantastic place. Hope you all get a chance to visit, or at least look at the website, neisd.net/ICSI.
Cyber, or ICSI or cyber. Yeah.
Cyber. Great. Josh, as part of this journey, can you describe what your seniors do for you there at the ICSI, as well as within the district at the high schools and the middle schools?
Right. Well, okay. So the seniors are mentors. I heard Mr. Hall. I've heard this before today, and so I rely on them to get out to the middle schools to help some of those coaches that are new. I bring them in, and not just the seniors. Anybody who's more than their first year here, or at the end of their first year here, I'm bringing them in to mentor and to teach. They organize classes, and I think that communication piece is just as important for these young people as anything, right? The ability to organize curriculum, present in a coherent way, think about how the lesson went, and then refine it. The upperclassmen really conduct the CyberPatriot meetings on the high school, at the high school level. And I have them kind of run their lesson plans by me. And we think about, how can we best present this to new learners, and how can we provide an advanced component so you guys are getting what you need too. So they really do work in the role as facilitators and teachers and mentors just all the time, whenever I can get them to do that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And Josh, that's great real world experience for them, because when you're part of no matter what workforce you go into, you're going to be part of a team, and you're going to have to do some of that as well. So those students are already getting that experience in high school. So hats off to you for that.
Yeah, no, the soft skills are super important. You got to be able to do public speaking, and you've got to be able to organize, communicate, and work with people. You got to be able to communicate technical ideas to a non-technical audience. That's important, right? Well, so we try to emphasize all that.
Indeed. Well, thank you all. I know I hope it's been enjoyable and instructive to those who are on the call here today. We've done our best. Sorry we lost Frank, his camera. Frank is still on, but we lost his camera. Thank you all for taking the time for your day, especially you, Rachel, on your day off, on your week off. It's fantastic for you to be able to have your passion for CyberPatriot. So Monique, Rachel, Josh, and Frank, thank you all. Really enjoyed the time today. And Val, over to you.
Absolutely. No, this has been fantastic. I think, if there is a way to show visually how CyberPatriot has transformed schools, we look at Josh as asking to turn the camera. Right? Oh, my heart is just warm to see this. I'm so glad, with the success and the progress, and I'm sure there's a lot to do. This becomes a template and a model for the rest of the nation to embrace. I can't wait to see this in Dallas. Josh, probably have to bring you and your team in to turn one of your places to one of our schools and labs to this. Definitely envious, but I have to go down to San Antonio to see that for myself.
We're happy to showcase the model to anyone, you bet.
Absolutely. So thank you all for joining us. This has been a great session, and then looking forward to building upon what you have done. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Val.
you.
Thank you all.